Jim Carrey has always been known for his explosive energy, his wild humor, and a personality that seems impossible to break. But his recent words about his former fiancée, Cathriona White, revealed a side of him almost nobody ever sees. What he shared wasn't the dramatic outburst people might expect from a Hollywood icon. Instead, it was quiet, heavy, almost whispered. And that made it even more heartbreaking. Because behind every comedian's smile, there's usually a wound the world doesn't notice. And Jim has carried this particular one for nearly a decade. For years, he avoided discussing Cathriona publicly. He kept the tragedy, the lawsuits, the online speculation, and the emotional fallout far away from interviews. It became a part of his life he rarely touched, almost as if speaking about it would reopen something he worked desperately to close. But recently, he broke that silence, not to defend himself, not to address accusations, and not to explain what happened. Instead, he spoke in a way that showed he was still trying to understand it himself. What makes his statement even more striking is the timing. Jim has stepped away from Hollywood, stepped away from fame, and stepped away from the noise that once surrounded his every move. And now, in this quieter chapter of his life, he's finally acknowledging the pain he kept hidden during the peak of the chaos. The moment he spoke her name, everything shifted. The tone changed, his voice softened, and it became clear this wasn't just a tragic story from his past. This was something he still carries with him, something that shaped him so deeply that even time hasn't dulled its impact. And that's where the real story begins, with two people whose lives collided in a way neither was prepared for, creating a connection that was as intense as it was fragile. Before the world linked their names together in headlines, lawsuits, and tragedy, Jim Carrey and Cathriona White had a connection that seemed almost accidental. She wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't trying to get into Hollywood. She was working as a makeup artist and stylist, someone who lived behind the scenes rather than in front of cameras. Yet the moment their paths crossed in 2012, friends say the energy between them shifted immediately. It wasn't the explosive kind of chemistry that causes rumors instantly. It was something quieter, something people noticed only after watching them together for a while. What made their connection particularly unique was how quickly it turned intense. People close to Cathriona said she saw Jim as someone who understood her in a way few people ever had. He wasn't just a movie star. He was someone who made her laugh, someone who paid attention, someone she felt drawn to without fully understanding why. On the other hand, Jim seemed equally affected by her calmness. Her presence wasn't loud or flashy. It had a softness that contrasted with the chaos of his career, but that very intensity eventually created complications. Their relationship wasn't the kind built on stability. Instead, it fluctuated, almost like two waves trying to sink but constantly missing each other by a few inches. They would grow close, then drift apart, then find their way back again. It was a cycle no one outside their circle really knew about, because both of them kept their emotions private. Rumors suggest Cathriona struggled more than she let on. She was suddenly involved with a global superstar, and with that came pressure she never asked for. She didn't want fame, but she couldn't escape the spotlight once their relationship surfaced. And Jim, battling emotional challenges of his own, wasn't always equipped to navigate the ups and downs either. But as complicated as things were behind closed doors, nothing could have prepared them for what was about to spill into the public. Because the moment the outside world got involved, everything they were trying to keep fragile and gentle began to crack. As the relationship deepened, the subtle cracks in their connection turned into noticeable stress points. The public didn't see it, not because they were hiding something sinister, but because neither of them wanted their private struggles to become entertainment. Still, anyone close to them could sense the shift. Cathriona wasn't used to constant speculation, sudden photographers outside her door, or online comments about her appearance. She had stepped into a world she never intended to join, and reports claim she often confided in friends about feeling overshadowed, not by Jim himself, but by the intensity of his fame. Jim was dealing with his own storms. He had long been open about battling internal darkness, though he rarely described it in detail. When someone with that kind of emotional complexity enters a relationship, the bond becomes delicate. Even small misunderstandings felt larger than they were. Even moments of silence felt heavier. People close to them would later say their relationship wasn't destructive, just unstable, like two people trying to hold on to each other while standing on shifting ground. They cared deeply, but caring didn't make everything easy. Their breakups were quiet. Their reconciliations were quieter. Neither tried to turn the other into a villain. It was just two people struggling to sync lives that didn't naturally fit together. Rumors suggest Cathriona felt torn between wanting to stay close to Jim and wanting to step back to breathe. At the same time, Jim reportedly wanted to protect her, but couldn't keep up with the emotional weight both of them were carrying. This tension never exploded publicly, but it built silently, creating an emotional pressure neither fully understood. And then, out of nowhere, the story took a turn that pushed both of them into a spotlight neither wanted, starting a chain reaction that would change Jim's life forever. When news broke in 2015 that Cathriona White had passed away, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The public wanted answers, the media wanted headlines, and Jim Carrey, already grieving, found himself in the center of a storm he never asked for. To lose someone you once loved is devastating enough. To lose them while being blamed, judged, and dissected publicly makes the pain almost unbearable. The situation escalated quickly. Her family filed lawsuits accusing Jim of everything from negligence to providing certain medications. Jim fiercely denied the claims, calling them attempts to exploit tragedy for money. His legal team described the accusations as fabricated. Eventually, after years of back and forth, the lawsuits were dropped. But the emotional scars didn't fade just because the court cases ended. Online discussions made things even more chaotic. Rumors spread, many of them completely unverified, painting distorted pictures of their relationship. Some speculated that Jim was hiding something. Others defended him, saying he had been nothing but supportive. The truth got lost somewhere in the noise, replaced by sensational headlines designed to attract clicks. But behind that media frenzy was a man trying to grieve someone he had once been deeply connected to. The weight of that loss, combined with years of accusations, pushed him further into isolation. Jim stepped back from public life more than ever, choosing silence over defending himself endlessly. People close to him said this was the turning point, the moment he realized the world would never fully understand what Cathriona meant to him, or how complicated their relationship really was. And because of that, he avoided speaking her name for years. That silence remained unbroken, until recently, when he opened up in a way that surprised everyone. When Jim finally spoke about Cathriona again, the shift in his tone was unmistakable. He wasn't angry, bitter, or defensive. Instead, he sounded like someone still trying to process a loss he never truly made peace with. During a recent conversation, he talked about people from his past who left a mark on him, And without hesitation, he mentioned Cathriona's name. The moment he did, his voice softened in a way that said more than any headline ever could. He described her not as a chapter he had moved past, but as someone he still carries. Those two words, "still carries," revealed a depth of emotion that caught fans completely off guard. He didn't go into specific memories, but he mentioned moments he keeps tucked away because they're too heavy to unpack. The phrasing alone showed the emotional weight he continues to feel, even after all these years. Jim also said he often reflects on that time in his life and wonders what he could have done differently. Not in a self-blaming way, but in a human way. He didn't claim responsibility. He didn't imply guilt. He simply acknowledged the complexity of caring for someone who was struggling in ways he didn't fully understand. He described Cathriona as a flickering light, a phrase that instantly struck fans. It suggested someone bright but fragile, someone still searching for stability in a world that felt too loud, too fast, too demanding. What made his words even more heartbreaking was what he didn't say. There was an unspoken pain beneath every sentence, as though he was choosing each word carefully to avoid reopening wounds that still haven't healed. And just as listeners were absorbing the weight of his confession, he revealed something even more unexpected, something that hinted at regret, love, and unfinished emotional business all tangled together. Jim's reflections on Cathriona didn't stop with memories or emotional fragments. He went deeper, revealing something he had never publicly expressed with such clarity: regret. Not the dramatic, self-punishing kind people often expect in tragic stories, but a quieter, more human form of regret that grows only after years of understanding. And this shift in his voice came right after he described her as a flickering light, making it clear that his next words were shaped by the weight of that image. He admitted that during their relationship, he struggled to fully comprehend the emotional world Cathriona was living in. Jim explained that he was dealing with his own mental and emotional challenges, and because of that, he sometimes missed cues, subtle signs she was trying to express something deeper. He didn't present this as guilt. Instead, he framed it as hindsight, slowly revealing things he couldn't see back then. Anyone who has ever looked back on a broken relationship with a clearer mind knows exactly what that feels like. He said there were conversations he wishes he had handled differently, moments he wishes he had slowed down for, and times he wishes he had stayed present instead of retreating into his own world. These weren't dramatic revelations. They were quiet confessions, the kind that show someone has spent years replaying fragments of the past. Some fans speculated online that his tone almost sounded like a man finally acknowledging the emotional distance he carried during those years. Others believed he was expressing a form of healing, not blame. And when Jin said these things, he didn't describe regret as a weight crushing him. He described it as a reminder, one that shaped him into someone more aware, more gentle, and more present. These reflections naturally led to a bigger truth Jim revealed next: how Cathriona permanently changed the way he looks at life itself. After opening up about the moments he wishes he'd handled differently, Jim shifted into something even more revealing: the way Cathrina's passing reshaped his entire worldview. This wasn't about grief alone. It was about transformation. And it became clear that everything he said before was building up to this realization. He explained that losing someone whose presence felt so deeply intertwined with his own made him reevaluate everything: fame, relationships, career, and even the purpose behind the work he once dedicated his life to. He described how for years he lived in a world of noise, Constant interviews, movie sets, publicity demands, people wanting something from him at every moment. But after Cathriona was gone, that noise felt unbearable. It felt meaningless. It felt small compared to the emotional earthquake he carried inside. Reports claim he began stepping away from Hollywood, not because he was tired of acting, but because he no longer felt connected to the version of himself the industry expected him to be. Fans noticed the change before he ever admitted it. His public appearances shifted. His interviews became philosophical, introspective, almost spiritual. He talked more about inner peace than box office numbers. And when he finally spoke about Cathriona recently, he hinted that this shift was a direct result of what her loss taught him. He said she made him more aware of how fragile people can be, even when they appear strong. He said she made him slow down, listen more, and value emotional honesty over charisma or performance. Some rumors online suggest that this transformation is also why he eventually decided to retire from acting, because he wanted a quieter life, one that allowed him to honor the lessons he learned, instead of getting pulled back into the chaos that once consumed him. All of this led to the most emotional moment of his reflection, the part where he revealed the message he carries from her to this day. As Jim continued speaking, his voice took on a tone that was softer than anything he had said before, almost as if he was letting the audience hear a thought he usually keeps private. After sharing how deeply Cathriona changed him, he paused, then delivered the line that instantly broke fans' hearts. "There are people you don't stop loving. You just carry them differently." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't embellished. It was simple and honest, and that's exactly why it hit so hard. This one sentence revealed everything he had been holding back for years. Grief, affection, regret, and the quiet acceptance that some emotional wounds never fully close. It showed that his bond with Cathriona didn't disappear when she passed. It simply shifted into something internal, something he doesn't often talk about, but still feels every day. He went on to say that he keeps certain memories of her tucked away, not because he wants to forget them, but because they're too meaningful to share with the world. These weren't the memories shaped by media headlines or legal battles. These were private moments, the kind only two people in a relationship truly understand. And even though he didn't describe them in detail, the way he spoke about them made it clear that they still shape him in ways the public will never fully see. Fans reacted strongly to this moment. Social media lit up with people saying they never realized how deeply the tragedy affected him. Others said they felt like they were hearing the real Jim Carrey for the first time. Not the actor, not the comedian, not the public figure, but the human being underneath it all. And just as listeners were absorbing the emotional impact of his words, he ended his reflection with one final thought, one that brought everything full circle and gave a heartbreaking sense of closure. Jim Carrey's recent reflections on Cathriona White weren't meant to reignite controversy, defend his past, or explain the tragedy that shook both their lives. Instead, they served as a reminder of something far more universal, that love, loss, and memory don't disappear just because life moves forward. The way he spoke about her showed that grief isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, woven into the everyday moments that shape who we become. He didn't try to resolve the past or rewrite history. He simply acknowledged that certain people remain with us long after they're gone, not as ghosts haunting us, but as memories that continue to guide us. Cathorina, in his words and tone, became one of those memories. Someone whose presence still influences the way he lives, thinks, and approaches the world. What made his final thoughts so powerful was the sincerity behind them. He didn't speak like a celebrity giving an interview. He spoke like someone who had finally reached a point where the pain was no longer too sharp to touch. He didn't dive into the lawsuits or the controversy. Instead, he focused on the emotional truth, something no headline or rumor could ever capture. And in doing so, he reminded fans of a painful but important reality. Even the people who seem the strongest can be shaken by loss. Even the ones who make the world laugh can carry private heartbreaks no one sees. Jim's journey through grief, regret, transformation, and acceptance is a testament to how deeply human he truly is beneath the fame. In the end, his message wasn't about tragedy. It was about love. A love that changed him, challenged him, and never left him. A love he continues to carry quietly, not as a burden, but as a reminder of someone who mattered far more than the world ever knew.